Welcome back. Oh my gosh, it is such a treat to see all these lovely faces. I don't know if you can see, but behind me are some flowers that my granddaughter picked from her yard to give to my wife and I for our 51st anniversary. It was so adorable. She's 11. Next summer, she wants to start a little flower business, have a flower cart. Why would I wanted to go over this with you to start with. Why would I say that presence is the one thing that everyone on this planet is looking for, whether they know it or not? Why would I say that? In order to be present, fully present, any of us have to let go of whatever we're thinking. You can't be holding on to thoughts while you're present. So then thoughts start flowing. And when our thoughts are flowing, we become unburdened. So the first benefit of presence is we become unburdened by thinking that weighs heavily on us, that creates stress, tension, upset. That's a pretty good benefit right there. Hey, sometimes that's enough. Second benefit. I picked 3 benefits that go along with that's freedom, that's pure thought, pure consciousness. When we become fully present or are stepping into presence or being presence, our senses are wide open, not concentrating. Just it's a relaxed presence. Senses are wide open. Only in presence do we enjoy our senses. It's called the enjoyment of the now. A cup of tea can be exquisite, just ordinary. Ordinary life can become sacred because of presence. The feel of the wind on your face, the smile of someone, the way something tastes. Third benefit, when we are wide open, this deeper intelligence called mind or wisdom brings us what we need in that moment. Brings us what I would call healthy feelings, feelings that allow us to feel connected to life. Even in low moods, you can feel connected to people, to life in a healthy way. presence is when people are at their best. I find this to be true with kids, little kids. I find this to be true of parents. When they're in presence, they begin to have a nicer feeling and begin to operate from common sense, not from books. They begin to listen more deeply without trying. It's when I see business people being at their best, listening, communicating well, making good decisions, being resilient. It's certainly when I'm at my best with my wife. I wish she was here now. You could ask her. Some people call presence our true self. Because we're being lived by a deeper intelligence. We're not trying to analyze and figure out and run the show. But it's from presence that we can use the intellect most wisely. So the intellect is a beautiful tool. Presence, the wisdom of presence, knows how to use the intellect wisely, to use it for what it was built for. Sid Banks called presence the ultimate answer. If any human being is having difficulty, well, why would we say presence is the ultimate answer? Because in presence, if there's something that needs to be thought about, you'll think about it. In presence, you're open to healthy feelings. In presence, you're open to deeper knowing. That's where we find peace of mind. It's where we find enjoyment. It's where we find loving connection. So Sid Banks said, pure thought is love. Pure consciousness is love. Pure mind is love. It's an unconditional love. Unconditional. As a woman from a housing project who had 7 teenagers and they were selling drugs and guns out of her apartment, and she discovered that in presence she could be a healthy presence to her kids rather than sitting there in defeat and discouragement and upset and drinking all day long. And as a healthy presence, over time, her kids changed. She says it's not a mamby-pamby kind of love, Dicken. It's not this feeling happy all the time. You're open to life. Now, have I ever met anybody who's present all the time? I'm lucky if I can go a minute. But then here's the deal. Once you know what presence is, it's like your home base. So you very, very gently bring yourself back to presence. At any moment, you notice that you're just caught up in your thinking in a way that's not helpful to you. Boom. As Sid says, if you really see that it's thought, it brings you back to the now. But it's a gentle coming back. It's not a, oh my God, I was caught up. What's wrong with me? Why can't I be present? That's thinking that burdens. The cure for that is presence. Now, when we ride a bike, balance, without thinking about it, we keep coming back to center. It's a constant dynamic process. It's only our big mind that can do that. Wisdom knows how to help us find balance. If I think about it and try and be balanced, try and be present, that's my personal thinking, and that kind of thinking I used to do a lot of, and it became a huge burden. When people drive a car, no one goes straight. We go a little left, and we correct. We go a little right, we correct. We come back to center. We keep coming back to the center of the lane. In psychology, we just call that healthy functioning. Back in the 70s, we used to call that being centered. The third point I want to make about presence, it is not a high experience and then holding on to that feeling. When we're present, thoughts and feelings are free to flow through us, so we experience all kinds of feelings. It's paradoxical because when we're fully present, it's a good feeling as life flows through us. It's just, we're part of life. We're part of the flow. It's very natural. We're balanced. It's called the freedom space. We're not having to manage ourselves. We're just open to the flow of life. Monique wrote me an email and said, Dicken, would you say something more about Sid's quote? It's one I'm sure you've probably all heard. A lot of people have liked it. It says, if the only thing that people learned was not to be afraid of their experience, that alone would change the world. If the only thing that people learned was not to be afraid of their experience, that alone would change the world. Monique asked me if I would say something more about that. It's extremely freeing. I can remember when I started to realize this, how free it is to allow everything to flow without trying to manage it. And then you can have any kind of experience and it doesn't frighten you because you know it's just going to flow. And if it keeps flowing, you remain present and there's enough space in your mind for wisdom to guide you, take care of things. I got some other emails. Troy asked me about working with clients who have strong beliefs in the law of attraction. And so they're sort of working that idea. Troy, would you like to come on with me? We can talk about this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a couple on my team, one in particular, because I talk about the orientation, I guess, around the 3 principles, and this person says, well, I really believe that the way I think causes my reality to show up, and I don't want to be in dispute of that for sure, but I want to be able to honor where they're at the same time help them see that about thought, consciousness, and mind. And I didn't really know how to bridge it. I going into the presence, and what my wisdom says at the time is to really listen and certainly not fight that idea. It's one of those ones I don't think I can prove, but the 3 principles feel so true, whereas that one seems to require some belief sometimes. And I don't know, that's I didn't know how to really respond to that and handle it.
Well, I like that you intuit that it doesn't make sense to argue with somebody's belief. Oh, how many times have I tried that? Then it just becomes my belief versus your belief, and that's what any argument is, right? We can certainly, if it's appropriate, we can share with people that we're interested in what comes before belief or where beliefs come from and the freedom of that. And that it's deeper than any belief and freer. Does that mean people are going to say, oh, okay, I'll let go of every belief that I think I need or that I've found helpful? No. It took me a long time to learn to let people have whatever belief they want to have. What I bring is presence and at times a sharing. I'm gonna boy, I have fun getting ready for today. I've got I got a handout to send to you. I made a handout. So I can tell you don't have to take notes when I talk about working with clients, because I want to be talking much more about working with clients today and next week. So Troy, is that helpful? Or is there anything more you want to ask about that?
No, I liked how you said it, talking about the place before belief. And I think if I'm in the present conversation with this person, that's where I'll stay. And I think respecting that they hold that view strongly, and just exploring it through questions, I suppose, would be and just good listening should be. What I'll say in the moment will be what I'll say in the moment. And but I think that has helped me. It's what's before belief, so I relate to that, so thank you.
Yeah. It's frightening for people to think that if you temporarily set aside beliefs, there's this fear then you'll lose them and you can't come back to them. There's a fear that if there's nothing beyond belief that isn't scary. There's this sense that I am identified with everything I believe, that's who I am, so it feels like death sometimes for people. So we just understanding that where we're pointing people initially can be frightening to people, or they don't understand why there would be any benefit to temporarily. I would never tell people If you have a belief that helps you, that's wonderful. It's great. I wouldn't tell people to let it go. Yes, I'm just saying there's something that happens to any human beings when we temporarily set aside all beliefs. That's what presence is. It's just a moment free of beliefs. And then something new and fresh can come. So there's no downside to it. And we certainly can go back into our intellect and hold on to any belief we want to anytime. We all have that freedom. It's beautiful. My wife and I have different beliefs, but when we fall into presence, we find love. When we hold on to beliefs, we could argue for a long time. You see?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Troy. Jane, you had a question about working with people with trauma and about crying. Jane Silvercorn. Jane, are you here today? Can you, if you're here, can you unmute yourself? I don't see her listed. Okay. She was asking me, what about crying? Is it okay to cry? Somebody once, some 3B person once said crying is just indulging in your emotions. And see now, thinking that crying is indulging in your emotions is a belief. It's not, it's a conclusion. It's an observation that some people have. Is it a universal truth? No. No. It's a belief. Nothing wrong with beliefs. But in order to find our well-being, we have to temporarily step back from everything we're thinking, all our beliefs. Now, I know when I'm fully present, everything is free to flow through me, and I could laugh 1 minute and cry the next. There's no indulgence. It's just flow. It's freedom to be and to feel. It's very cool. When I've been with friends or family that are dying and I'm with them, they're literally dying, and with presence, there's love, whether you're laughing or crying, and people will feel loved. If you get caught up in your thinking and you're thinking about this and thinking about that and crying, that's what I think the person means about is that can be indulgent. But there's certainly nothing wrong with crying, and there's no law. The 3Ps don't tell people what to do or how to do it. They just say, this is how life works. You live your own life however you want. Just know that you have a free will so that if you want to, you can drop into presence at any moment. You're a thought away. And please know that that's where you're going to find your well-being. That's where you're going to find what you're looking for. That's where wisdom brings you exactly what you need at that moment to be responsive, loving, kind, warm. I was talking with my brother the other day, and we have some very, very different beliefs. And we had a really great talk, and then every once in a while we get a little attached to a belief and we get a little bit intense. And unfortunately, both of us know enough that when we feel that intense, we just back off, and then something new and fresh comes. Presence doesn't require that you not believe what you want to believe. It's just moments of freedom from belief so that you're living fully responsive to the moment, not belief bound, not bound by ideas, concepts, limiting ideas. That's why we say it's non-conditional love. She asked about working with people with trauma. At this horrible, horrible things can happen to people. Rare is the person that goes through life where something horrible doesn't happen to them. And then we have memory. And then the way it works is when we're present, it's what I call divine therapy. Okay, let me explain that. If something horrible happens and I have this memory, it's hard to shake it. It keeps coming back. Now, here's the deal. When it comes back, if we focus on it, think about it, talk about it, make it a big deal, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger because now we're bringing that thought to life with more thinking. We're creating even more painful memory. So now we're taking a painful memory and adding to it. It's built into us to get over trauma. Presence is what helps any human being get over painful memories. So here's how it works. The painful memory comes up and we go, oh yeah, okay, I'm just experiencing thought. That's normal. Nothing wrong with having this feeling. I'm not frightened of it. It flows through us with presence. Every single experience we've ever had has changed. When you leave it alone, it flows through, and it's like doing the psychological laundry. This contaminated memory comes up, it flows through, and the next time it flows through, it's not so strong. It doesn't grab your attention as much. Doesn't create such a strong feeling. And then the next time, not as strong, next time, not as strong. This is how people get over upset. This is how it's built into us to get over trauma. But trauma does not have to do with the past. It's a function of our relationship to memory. And most people don't know that. A horrible thing did happen to you in your life, but right now, this is a memory coming through. It's just a thought. We're not dismissing it. We're not denying it. We're allowing it. We're allowing you to feel it. But in that free flow, this organic healing process happens. So it doesn't mean if you're present to life, you're going to always feel good. You're going to experience everything, including painful memories at times. Sometimes when we're at our best, they kick in. Boy, did that used to concern me and frighten me. And boy, I thought there was something wrong. And I had to talk about it in therapy for ages and over again. And it never seemed to heal. And so I started thinking I was traumatized for life and scarred by stuff that happened to me and in presence, there's no problem with what you're experiencing. Wisdom takes care of it. Even if you can't shake it for a while, so what? That happens to me too. I'm caught up and I'm thinking about it. Oh, yeah. But I know it's going to pass. And I know that at some point I can just gently bring myself back to presence and be renewed in spirit and touch that space that's undamaged and unscarred. Always has been, always will be. That's my core, my true self. There's no scarring in presence. There's just a flow of life, deeper feeling of aliveness, vitality, connection. Okay, who else has questions? I want to spend some time doing questions or conversations with anybody who would like to talk about working with clients or sharing the principles with anybody. This is a time, and then I have something prepared for later that I want to talk about.
Hello?
Yes, Martine. Yes.
I have a, it's not a client, it's my sister, which makes things a bit more touchy. She's been in a tailspin mentally for a few months. She was calling me 4 or 5 times a day. Now I cut it down to once. And when I tried, she's ruminating a lot. And when I try to keep her now, bring back to the now. Well, right now, that's not what's happening right now. Well, but my now is awful. She has a narcissistic ex-husband who's gaslighting her, and she cannot find help and no financial help. He's cutting off of finance, and she has problems with finding lawyers. Anyway, so she's in a bad place on top of being bipolar, maybe borderline. So, and each time I try to bring it, well, right now, no, go back to the now. No, right now you're okay. Right now you're fine. Yeah, but my now is this is happening and this is happening. And she says, see, all things that I predicted are happening. He says, yeah, because you're always thinking of all the worst case scenario. And yeah, what a surprise. Worst case scenario is happening. But go back to the now, no? And now you have maybe other ideas, no, fresh thinking, new solutions. And a few weeks ago, she started to hear, and now she's not hearing again. Yeah. And the fact that we're sisters, probably, even though we're not close, probably doesn't help in a sense. But do you have any I don't know how to bring somebody back in the now so they can have fresh new thinking or fresh new solutions?
We do it with friends, don't we? We talk with them about things where we both enjoy the conversation, because people only enjoy the conversation when they're present. Trying to teach someone when they're not open to being taught has never worked for any of us. Mm. So talking about, in a sense, giving her advice or trying to point her somewhere when she's not present or open or receptive. Nothing wrong with giving it a try, if it's helpful. If it's not helpful, if we keep trying to do that, it doesn't tend to work out very well. So later I'm going to talk about what I think are stages of working with clients, right? So if the teaching part, sharing, is not going well, you just come back to presence and to getting rapport with people.
Yeah, that's probably part of the problems. She's been phoning me a few times a day for 5 months on. Kind of losing patience a little bit. Yeah.
Well, in presence, it doesn't mean that it won't occur to you to say, here's when I'm available, or here's how many times I'll talk to you, or let's set a time where we talk, or who knows what might occur to you about that. You see, wisdom knows the answers to everything we're struggling with, but most often when we feel like we're up against something, we don't see what comes new and fresh about that. And it's different for everybody, honestly. But when you, Martine, when you start to feel stuck or it's not going anywhere, that's just an invitation for you to come back to not knowing and really just listen and be present and see what feels new and fresh that comes. And that's where you'll get surprised. And if you get new and fresh, you're not stuck. I like the metaphor of like a game of chess or some where you make a move and then the other person makes a move and then you go, oh, okay, given that, let me see what makes sense. And you see what new and fresh occurs to you and you make a move and then you see what new and fresh occurs to you. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I realized that probably the last few phone calls I was not present, but probably just annoyed. And
which can happen at, I got annoyed with my brother and it was like, either you see it or you don't. If you don't, you keep going with that. And when you see it, then annoyance is a very friendly thing. It's good. It's a good thing. It's an indicator that we're getting caught in our ideas. And when we realize that, it brings us back to presence where we're not caught in ideas. And then there's flow and something new can come. And our feeling will change. And when our feelings change, people respond to presence. It does something for people. It settles them down. True presence. But it's tricky with family members because we get invested in wanting to help, wanting to have them see it the way you see it. And I could see that with my brother when we had our talk a couple of days ago. But there's a space inside of us that's the ultimate answer. It's a space where we relax, we start to feel better, and then we know something different, or we get a new idea, or we see somebody different, and our feeling shifts. Boy, that's a lifelong lesson. Keep seeing more about that. Keep getting more gentle, coming back to presence when I realize I've been not in a great feeling, trying to convince somebody of something. Getting a little intense about it. Sure happens to all of us. Yeah, I wish you well with that. I wish your sister well too.
Yeah, she doesn't speak English. I cannot say, listen to Sid.
Yeah. What does she speak?
French. Is in Montreal.
We're working at Three Principles Global Community. We're working on finding people who speak each of these languages and putting on translated videos or videos with subtitles, and we, it's a long-term project, and we've gotten several languages done, but I'll have to check and see if somebody's working on French.
That will be so helpful because
No,
some of my clients are also unilingual French, so that will help. So
yeah.
thank you.
I mean, that's another way that practitioners can help, is you can volunteer to do some of that. Just get in touch with 3PGC, with Bonnie at 3PGC, and she'll tell you how you could help with that. Okay, thanks, Martine. Bear.
Yeah.
Hey, Dicken.
Hey.
Thanks for taking me on here. You were talking about trauma earlier, and I found it very helpful. I wondered if you could possibly expand a little bit. I'm starting tomorrow working with a young veteran from Afghanistan. He's only 23. He has a full medical discharge from the Army because of so many explosions that went off next to him. So if you could maybe just talk a little bit more about working with someone with PTSD symptoms, and also keeping in mind that he also has what he calls TBIs, which I guess is traumatic brain injury, which is physical, right? And I'm not sure how to play between the physical and the non-physical.
Yeah. You work with the psychological because the physical is not your domain.
Right.
Right? I've worked with people with all kinds of physical brain damage. But that's not my, I say talk to your doctor. If you have a medical question, talk to your doctor. But still, you're a psychological being, no matter what physical condition you have. When I work with people that have really been traumatized, the very first thing I want to do, other than you'll see sort of what I think is important as a general rule, but I like to help people feel heard, and I like people to get some hope, right? Like I can tell people, I know it's possible to get over traumas. Do you think it's possible for people? Do you know of anybody who's gotten over a trauma? How do you think that happens? Right? I'm learning how that happens, but I'm curious how you think it happens. It's really hopeful, man. Lots of people in your situation have learned things that have helped them go through this more easily. That's why you've come to me. Hope goes a long ways for people. And if people know you have hope in their well-being, that goes a long ways. Right? At some point, when I have good rapport with somebody who's been traumatized, I can say it's a thought problem now. Let me tell you what I mean. Right now, experiences can throw any of us for a loop, and we get caught up in them in a way that creates psychological suffering. Me too. But there are things we can realize that can help us not be so frightened of those experiences and actually heal from them. See? I'll say more about that later, Bear.
Thanks. I love that, Dick, and just the part about hope. So important for me to remember, and it's funny, even listening to you, not being the client with the symptoms, I felt myself drop in and get
I know.
calmer and more hopeful, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I know.
and I'm thinking that what a wonderful feeling for him to have also, if just from listening to hope. So thanks.
Oh. It's a very hopeful message that no matter what you've been through, you have all the resources within you already to help you deal with whatever you're experiencing, to go through it more gracefully, and to help you have a life characterized by caring and love and compassion. And that on the physical level, those things can't prevent that from happening. They're not the deal breaker that you have brain damage. I worked for a long time with a vet who had had severe brain damage from explosions. But as he began to wake up out of the thinking that was burdening him and stop being frightened by these experiences, and they were free to flow through, and then healing started happening. Unbelievable how his life changed. That's why I can't tell you enough how having our own realization of what's true, of how life works, of how people work, helps us have hope. And if we have hope, we can bring that hope to other people. The ordinary. Thanks, Bear.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. Good luck with your person.
Thanks.
Karen, you have your hand up. Karen, I think you're unmuted now. I'm not hearing anything, Karen. I see your screen. Karen, we can either try again later or, oh, I see you're writing something in chat. I was just going to suggest that. She said, I just want to touch more on acceptance of low moods. It's natural for us to have a flow of thinking that goes up and down. I've never met a person who doesn't go up and down naturally. When we go up and down and do a lot of thinking about our ups and downs, it can be difficult. If we go up and down and it keeps bringing us back to presence and our up and down thinking is free to flow, we begin to discover something deeper than the ups and downs on the surface. Just like an ocean can have a lot of turbulence on the surface. You go a little bit deeper, there's a quiet underneath that turbulence. It's always there. You go a little bit deeper and there's a stillness. So presence takes us in that vertical direction. It takes us into experiencing what's always there deeper than the turbulence on the surface. When we're fully present during our moods, there's a sense of ease and grace. There's not fighting and struggling and judging. It's very natural. We become more resilient. In other words, our ups and downs flow naturally without being impeded by focusing on and grabbing onto and doing a lot of extra thinking about what we're experiencing. Karen, if there's anything else you want to ask about in terms, without talking to you, if there's anything else you want to, okay. Yeah, she says we strive to not have them for so long. I spent most of my life thinking my low moods were a problem that I had to deal with. I'd feel bad about them. I'd think I should feel good all the time, and I'm feeling bad, and I'd feel embarrassed, and I'd work on it, and I'd talk about them in therapy. And it's all innocent. Without principles, we're just sort of trying everything and without really having a foundation. We now have a foundation for psychology. When Sid had his enlightenment experience, practically the first thing he said to his wife is, we're going to travel the world. This is going to change the whole face of psychology and psychiatry. He intuited that this was a game changer. Right? It's not working on what's already been created. It's discovering what's doing the creating. It's dropping into a space where it's characterized by new and fresh and flow. And a wisdom that keeps moving us toward the experience of, or keeps creating the experience of well-being. Freedom space. Okay. Thanks, Karen. That's a good question. Candida.
Hello. Yes. Now. Hello. So thank you. I have a question with a client, a problem. So this client has for years, yes, because I'm working with her for years, literally, at least 6 or 7, the same problem. Yes, she is really very, very unhappy, stuck in a situation, and she thinks she can't change it. And of course she could, yes, and we have worked so much on this, really, because I started with her as a trauma therapist, so I've did all this exploration and body work and things, and later on, as I got into this understanding, we were talking now also already for years about this thought and the wisdom, and she gets it. And if she has like acute crisis, yeah, where she's just like completely, and she calls me, so it happens that she gets back to her wisdom, and she knows what to do in the next moment, and she knows what's good for her. And then next day, it's like this movie, The Groundhog Dog, yeah, reset. We start again from the set as if nothing happened, yes? And the same thing. I already had an argument with her because I said, I can't work with her. I don't want to because it's some time ago, because I just can't stand to hear about this topic anymore. I can't help her. I told her, yeah, I can't help her. I don't know. But after a while, she restarted calling me. And well, now I'm a little bit of, I don't know. I try to help, but I have the feeling I cannot. And I myself stuck in this situation, Philip. And I thought maybe you see something in this.
Have you told her what you told me?
Yes, and she was really mad at me. She was really pissed. Yeah, I hope this is the normal word in English. I can't say it. We had a really bad argument. I told her that. It's like my husband told me to tell her. He asked me this question is a month ago, when she was like all the time, and I was telling her this. I wasn't telling her that. I was just all the time telling my husband, oh my God, I can't stand this. She's calling again. She's writing me emails. And then he told me, did you tell her what's your problem? And I was, oops, no, I didn't. So I said, okay, I'm going to do that. I did that. And yes, she was mad at me. And so we had this argument. And then I said, okay, we stop. It's okay. Yeah, I can't help you. And after 3 or 4 months, she started calling me again. And well, I said, okay, but I don't really know what to do with her. You know, sometimes she calls me and she has an acute problem, like a crisis, yeah, like a nervous breakdown. And then I can help her, yeah, so to step back and, yeah, but with this general chronic problem, I cannot help her.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very easy for clients to become dependent upon their therapist to help them. I need you to help me calm down. I need you to help me figure out what to do. I need you to, right? It's very, very common. And then people, in a sense, don't know anything other than that relationship. So it becomes a dependency relationship. Now, I have no clue what's best or right. So we're not having that discussion, because that's going to be what occurs to you. I'll just say some things, right? I'll say some things. Sometimes when I've worked with a client and I'm just like totally stuck, I do one of two things. Now I'm making this up, right? So don't get it. Use your own judgment. I'll say, every time we talk, I'll say, I don't have a clue what's best for you. You tell me. See, this is where I won't let a person be dependent on me. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to give advice. I'm not going to teach you. You know a lot. I know you've learned a lot. I've seen you at times. What do you know? What do you know? What have you learned? Have you learned anything at all that's helpful? Now, whatever she says, if she says, well, maybe I've learned this, that's all I talk about. Because that's what she's learned. That's coming from you. That's wonderful. Every time she gets into trouble, I come back to her, remember what you've learned. It's one way of trying to break that chronic dependency that some clients can have on people. And they just don't know that it can be better than that. It's what they're used to. Now, the other thing that I do is I bring someone else into the session to work with them and see if they can help. Or I just refer, I say, I think it's time for me to refer you to somebody else. Doesn't appear I'm helping you at all. Now, sometimes that changes everything, right? And it's like, listen, this isn't personal. It's just I care about you, and this doesn't seem to be helping you, and I don't want to have that be on you. And I'm not seeing something. Maybe somebody else would see something. Now, sometimes, even if the other person gets mad, it changes again the dynamic of dependency. Or you start saying, listen, I can't keep having you call me all the time. Or for now, I'm going to see what happens if I don't let you talk about that topic that you keep talking about every time that doesn't help you or me. That's off the table. And I will talk with them about that and see if they'll agree with that, see if we can collaborate on doing it different. Just saying, why keep talking about that with me? Because I can't help you with it, and it's not helping, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about other things. I'm confident that you can learn things while we talk about other things that's going to help you with this. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, just keep being creative in the face of stuckness. And as a general rule, I would say when somebody is that dependent, they just haven't learned how to trust that when they feel upset, number one, they're going to get through it. And number two, if they quiet down, they'll have all the answers they need. So I start going in that direction. I'm not teaching anything to you. I'm listening and I'm asking you, what do you know? What makes sense? What's your common sense say? Oh, did you see how you used your wisdom there? That was you. That came from you. Did you see how that worked? Right? Because otherwise, when I find myself working too hard with a client, trying to help them, I know it's my problem. I'm starting to think I'm the expert and I should be able to help her, rather than her wisdom is the only thing that's going to cure this thing. I start thinking I know better than her wisdom. Whoa, then I get into trouble. Me too, and that's happened to me. I've been there where you are. Long-term client, trying really hard, keep trying, basically doing the same things over and over again. Isn't that the definition of insanity? And then we start feeling insane, and we start feeling a little embarrassed because we're the professional here, and then,
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Really.
Welcome.
That was very helpful. Very helpful. Thank you.
Just before you go, tell me what was most helpful for you.
Most helpful was for me to point her back to her own wisdom and to ask her, what has she learned? Yes. Yes, this was the most helpful for me, because I thought, oh yes, this to go to someone else, we had this already, yeah, and it didn't really help. But I never, this question really related to me, to ask her, what did you learn from all this? Yes, this is so good, yeah, to see if she has learned, because I never asked this question like this. So I'm very curious what she's answering. Yeah, I don't know, but this is really
be curious. That's good. That's good. You're back to being curious, right?
Yes.
Back to, it's about her wisdom. This is another way in which this is so radically different than traditional therapy. It's the client's wisdom that does all the work. If the therapist ends up feeling like they're doing all the work, we've lost sight of their wisdom. We're not pointing them toward that and asking them about that and drawing that out, right? So, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're absolutely welcome. Monique said that was helpful for her too. Okay, I want to have some time here before we end. Now, here's my disclaimer. See, here's what I'm going to send you. It's meeting with clients 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's my disclaimer. This is completely made up. It's hints that point you back toward your wisdom so that you can see, get curious, like Candida is curious, get curious to see what you can see for yourself about this. Okay. When I meet with clients, the first thing, I don't have any agenda. I'm not there to teach them the principles. I'm there to meet them as a person. We're back to presence, because in presence, you're not in a role. A role is an idea you're holding on to. Or in presence, you're playing a role, but you know it, and it's just fun to play roles sometimes. You're not so attached to it. So I really just want to meet people as a human being. And presence itself is loving, is caring, is kind. If people feel like you really are present and not always thinking about what to say, what to do, how to be, they start trusting you as a human being. We trust presence because it's the absence of ego. It's not personal. So I wrote that down. Surprise, surprise. Second, I call hearing. I can't tell you how many people I talked to who said, I talked to a 3P client, I told them my problem, and they dismissed me with, it's just thought, get over it. Don't live in the past. They felt totally unheard. So I put second, hearing. You really hear the person suffering. It's empathy. It doesn't mean that if they're suffering, you have to suffer to show empathy. I used to think that. Here, I'll feel as bad as you're feeling right now. True empathy can be as simple as saying, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you've been through that. That is hard. That's horrible. Man, I know what that's like. I've felt that bad, or I've felt whatever. I've never had a client tell me they feel something that I think, oh, I felt that way too. But it doesn't have to be a long drawn out thing. If somebody wants to tell me their story, I don't usually interrupt them and say, don't talk about the past. I say, okay, tell me your story if you want to tell me your story. Even if it takes all session, I'll just listen. And oh man, that's no fun to get stuck that way. That can be very painful to get stuck in a feeling like that. Man, my heart goes out to you. I want a client to feel heard. I don't have any right to share with them anything until they feel heard. The third thing I wrote down is seeing. You know how Sid Banks says there's seeing, then there's seeing, there's hearing, then there's hearing. Presence creates hearing, and presence, because you become more warm-hearted and compassionate in presence. Seeing is seeing the client's problem as universal and seeing it with compassion. For example, Every single problem that any human being I've worked with after I've learned the principles have one of three universal problems. In some way or another, they're caught up in their thinking that seems true to them, and that they're blaming that feeling on the world, on something. Right? They haven't learned about the principle of thought yet. So I was a psychologist for 10 years. I didn't know where my feelings came from, so I blamed them on the world like anybody else. Now, this isn't teaching. This is just you having compassion because they're stuck. Any human being who gets caught up in thinking and it's painful and it seems real is going to suffer. Anybody, myself included, everybody. No exceptions. People haven't learned about consciousness yet, so they don't know that there's a place within them of restful and renewing presence. If people understood that, the instant they felt pain, they'd let go of everything we're thinking and drop into that space where the only space where we can be renewed in spirit, find peace of mind. It'd be instantaneous if they understood that. Why would I wait and keep thinking about something if it keeps adding to my burden? And I'm a thought away from this presence in which I feel more alive, I feel better, and I begin to know better. The third thing is they haven't learned about the principle of mind, so that they don't realize they have a connection to wisdom. So they're not really listening for their wisdom, like Candida's client. They don't know that the guidance they need isn't going to come from outside. It's going to come from their own common sense. They don't know they're already being mentored by mind. It's not their fault. They haven't learned this. They haven't seen it. They haven't been taught this. People are suffering, yes, and it's painful, yes. And we can feel compassion and empathy for anyone who's suffering, yes. All right? And there are things they haven't been taught or that they haven't realized that can help them relieve any psychological suffering. The fourth one, so it's presence, then hearing, then seeing, then sharing. Sharing is where at some point it's just loving, kind, caring to share with other people what you know. So Sid used to say, meet with people, listen, really listen, and then at some point, share what you know, keep it ordinary. Here's what I've learned, here's what I'm seeing. And you do the best you can to point towards something that not only is true for you, it's not, here's a belief that I believe, it's here's something I've learned that seems to always be true, and this is helping me. Maybe it'll help you. You're finding your own way to point toward the simplicity of the principles. With some clients, I only point toward thought because it helps them so much. With other clients, I don't point toward thought that much. I point toward pure consciousness or presence. With other clients, I only talk to them about wisdom, and it's just unbelievable what it does for them. And other clients, I do a little of all. I just let my own wisdom guide me. All three are three ways of talking about ultimately the same thing. They point people toward their own presence, and they'll then get the benefits. Now, as happens to anybody who tries to share what you know with other people, at times we're going to get caught up in our thinking about the client, about how we're doing, about what we should say to them, about what we should teach them, about, oh my gosh, we can just get so caught up and then we lose presence. So the fifth stage I called returning. We just over and over and over and over again, all day long, all client session long, all the time we're just returning to not knowing and presence. It's our failsafe so we don't get too wedded to anything. We keep coming back to new and fresh. We keep coming back to a feeling of caring and connecting. And we keep coming back to being open where we can get new and fresh. And then we do the best we can to point them in a direction that can be helpful. I put in a sixth point I call trusting. I just sort of shared that. I said, with all of the above, trust your own wisdom. These are guidelines, not rules. I break every one of these. Sometimes the first thing out of my mouth, I'm sharing something, but it's because it occurs to me so strongly and I'm just seeing how they respond to it. And because sometimes I intuit that people are already wide open and receptive, and a little bit of pointing and they take off. Sometimes I listen to people forever and they settle down more, they settle down more, they settle down more. If they're not settling down, I go back to the drawing board and see what else occurs to me. And you learn to trust over and again what occurs to you fresh. And you won't ever find that from a book or a tape or from someone else, which ultimately the sharing the principles comes out of your own grounding in the principles. So that you become aware of when you're caught in thought, you can be free of it, you can rest wide open in a space of really warm-hearted presence. Your feeling opens up, and then you get new and fresh. So the more you're grounded yourself in the principles, the easier it is to keep coming back to presence, coming back home to where you have everything you need to respond to the person in that moment. Okay, I'm going to send this as a Word attachment when I send you the link to this. When I go into a client, though, I throw away all my notes, everything. I just meet them first, just meet them, and then trust that what's important wisdom will bring from me. I don't have to try and remember, oh, am I supposed to be hearing now or seeing? When do I do that returning stuff? And I don't want to be thinking about any of that. I don't even want to be thinking about the principles while I'm with people. Listening, meeting, helping them feel heard, really listening. And then when something occurs to me to share, I share it. And then I look at them and see if it's helpful or not. If it is, we keep going in that direction. If it's not, I back off and see what else occurs to me. That's just natural. That's how we are with people we love. We meet them. Hi, how you doing? What's going on? We get rapport, which means we get really present with them and they get present with us. And then there's this listening, what's going on? And then there's sharing. And then we see if it's helpful. and go back to the drawing board. That's just natural. That's what happens in any healthy relationship. So I'm just spelling it out. This is what tends to happen anytime, but it's not set in stone. It's your wisdom will trump anything here. Anything takes precedent. Questions about this? We have a few minutes left if anybody has a question.
Hi, it's Jacqueline. It's more of a comment rather than a question.
Great, thanks.
The lady who was talking, gosh, I'm looking for her name, Candida. Yeah, I just first of all just want to acknowledge you being open to share your situation, and I couldn't help notice how your energy, Candida, shifted when Dicken asked you, like, what was your insight, or what did you get the most out of what he said? And when you said something like, I'm going to point this person to her wisdom, just your energy just shifted.
Yeah.
And I reacted to it. I reacted to, oh, yeah. So just thank you for that. And there's something about how can I point someone else? How can I, Jacqueline, point someone else to their wisdom when I'm not allowing my wisdom to point them?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's mine.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
That was a very nice observation. You can tell when people hear something because their energy shifts.
Mm.
And that's why I came back to it and asked her about it, because she's seeing something now fresh for herself. Even though she used some of my words, it's hers now. It's because it came fresh and alive, and it came with that whole sense of curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Thank you for,
Mm-hmm.
for seeing that. Bear, go ahead.
Hey, Dicken, can you speak again? Somebody's on the screen besides you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. I know we don't have a lot of time, but can you speak a little bit to, if you're starting an intensive with somebody and you know you're going to have 2.5 or 3 days, I'm imagining you do exactly what these 6 things, moment to moment, and just flow with what comes. But I'm wondering if you also, knowing you have 3 days, if there's any agenda that you have, like, well, I kind of want to introduce this on the 2nd day, or I want to make sure they know this on the 3rd. Is there any kind of thing like that going on, or are you just in the moment for that whole time going where you get led?
Whatever makes sense. Sometimes I say, oh, I've talked to this person in the first session. I'd really like to be able to get to something that I think might be of help. Now I have an agenda, you could say. I'm not wedded to it, but it's just something that makes sense. Most of my agenda is driven by where the person is and what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Right? So often at some point in the first session, I say, if this went well for you, what would that be like? How do you think you'd be different? What are you looking for? What are you hoping for? I'd like to know that. It's not essential. I don't always do it, but most often people come for a reason. I want to know what it is. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Lois.
Hello, Dicken.
Yes, hi.
I even don't know why this question occurred to me, but he keeps coming back. And it is the question if there is a connection between free will and wisdom. And I don't know where it comes from, but it came to me that I thought free will, wisdom, is there a connection between?
I think free will is what allows us to be open to wisdom. Because we have free will, so if I want to, I can think about things all day long, but I'm not really, while I'm thinking about things, I'm not really open to wisdom. And the more I've learned how this works, I go, oh, I want to see what wisdom has to say about this. Remember how I said, we don't really have control over what thoughts come into our head. They just flow through, they're coming through. It's like, but we do have, it does seem like human beings have a choice about whether they keep thinking about something or whether they just step back into presence. I like knowing I have that choice at any moment. I'm not choosing what I think or feel. Stepping into a space where I have access to well-being and wisdom, where I can feel more alive, more open to insights, more, I don't know, in a feeling that starts to connect me with people. So I think in that sense, there's that connection as free will is a choice. Like in nature, that choice gets made on a primal level. You can say flowers choose to turn toward the sun. Trees choose to grow toward the light. You can see birds choose when to fly away because they think they might be in danger. But it's not, we tend to think choice only happens on a conscious level. When I'm not thinking about things, choices still get made. When I'm driving a car, I'm making life and death decisions all the time. I'm not thinking about them. So it's helpful to know that if we stop thinking about something, it doesn't mean we stop making choices about how to respond to or deal with it. See, that's a deeper understanding of free will, is we allow choices to be made by wisdom. We tend to think of it only as our own choice, our own wisdom, ego choice and wisdom. I like to get out of the way so that wisdom can choose through me. Healthy response. Is that helpful?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I like that you trusted. What difference does it make why? It just, if something keeps occurring to you, if you trust it, it works out great. There's something there.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I trust.
Does it feel that way to you, that there was something in that question for you?
Yes, yes. Yeah, but and I don't know now, I don't know why, but I think I let it
Yeah. Yeah. You may or may not know it. See, that's the intellect. It takes a long time for the intellect to catch up with wisdom. And later on, you may or may not intellectually have an idea why.
yeah.
But even that's just an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But thank you.
No, you're welcome. Thank you. It's been a lovely time with all of you. And again, I've appreciated your emails and your sharing and your questions. And I appreciate your willingness to have conversations with me. That was my sense about it would be a combination of my sharing what's new and fresh and your really asking questions that can help you feel more comfortable with your understanding and with the sharing of this understanding with friends, family, clients. To know that it's normal to have all these feelings or to get stuck or to lose presence and find it hard to get back. And that's all just, we just get more gentle about all of this. More gentle, more understanding, more compassionate. Oh yeah, that happens. We're each doing the best we can until wisdom chooses something new for us. We do the best we can to get out of the way so that wisdom can take over, if you will. Okay, we'll see you next week and we'll talk more about it, and I'll see what's new and fresh for you. All righty. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good night. Bye-bye.